everybody, hope you're doing well. Welcome back to another video. This is part of my 25x of 2025 series in a sense,
because I am splitting it up a little bit this year. I did my 25 worst ones, which has already been posted, and then today I'm going to be doing my 25 most honourable mentions, so it's sort of like from 50 to 75 or something, yeah. And then I'll also be doing my 25 best books, which are my like 75 up to 100 or whatever, however many way you want to do it around. But yeah,
these are like my 25 sort of good books but weren't favourites, and yeah, they mostly range from like 4.25 to 3.5 stars, so good books but not great books. And this time, instead of my worst ones, we aren't going from like least worst to worst. Now we're doing it from least best to best good, whatever. Anyways, without further ado, I will get onto the first one, and I'm going to be doing it probably a little bit shorter this time because I don't feel like I have as much to say. But number 50, I guess, in this sort of way of doing it, I don't know if I'll be doing all the numbers this time because that took forever. But anyway, number 50 is Columbus Bones by David Gregg. This is part of the Darkland Tales series of books, each sort of featuring on a period of Scottish history and coming at it with sort of like a modern-esque lens, and some humour as well. Yeah, I really like the sort of like found family element in this book, the setting, and how it was like written and stuff, but maybe I didn't love the plot. Also was quite good about the characters exploring their sort of own religious sort of like ideologies and feelings and stuff between the sort of like Christianity of the monk, main character in this, Brother Martin, and the sort of Viking beliefs of Grimmer. So yeah, would recommend that. Then number 49 is The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. Yeah, 3.5. I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it, to be honest. The start, hated, despised. I really did not like the start of this book at all. But then when it got to the like, I want to say like 40 to 60% mark, I can't remember exactly where it was, where it goes into part 2 of the book, and I was sat down in my bed reading, and I was hooked. I was like, slay. So yeah, I did end up actually enjoying that book quite a lot. It does have its faults, it has its problems, 100%, but it was entertaining. But 48 is Peace and Quiet by Elliot Miles Emery. This is a collection of short stories. The author asked if I would review the book as an e-arc before publication through TikTok, which I did, and yeah, I enjoyed this book. It's sort of about sort of like finding solace and peace and calm and quiet and stuff, a little bit in our sort of like modern busy lives and different like sort of multi-facets of humanity and stuff like that. Maybe it lacked a little bit of cohesion, and I didn't enjoy all the stories, but definitely I did enjoy it as a collection, and I would recommend supporting the author and getting his new book. Then let me just get this big pile over here, because most of the books I have here are all physical, so I can just hold it up instead of keep putting the picture. But anyway, this is number 47, Catabasis by R.F. Kuang. I was hoping this was going to be higher, one of my favourite books of the year, especially how beautiful it is, but I did feel a little bit let out, to be honest. Don't want to go over the story again because I read it in December, so I've just been talking about it quite a bit. But basically, Alice, Law, and her academic rival at Cambridge, Peter Murdoch, go to hell to find their tutor to try and like get him back so he can give them recommendation and stuff to complete their degree, and sort of their exploration through hell, lots of sort of like literary and philosophical ideas and sort of paradoxes and thoughts about hell, and yeah, I was a little bit let down. I think it didn't really make that much use of the Cambridge setting, especially if like you compare it to Babel, which maybe I shouldn't keep doing, but it's hard not to because that is just so incredible. And also the magic system was a little bit confusing, and I couldn't really get a full sense of what this hell looked like. But yeah, it's a good piece of work, well written. I would recommend it, but I didn't love it. a little bit let down. Then number 46, I'm gonna keep forgetting the numbers, you guys, is The World According to Kunk, by Philomena Kunk or Diane Morgan. This is sort of like a history book, in her own words, about like the history of the illustrated history of all world events ever, space permitting. It's quite, you know, short, quite fast paced. It is primarily British and American centric, which she does acknowledge in the introduction because that's where most of her fan base are, so it kind of makes sense. And a lot more is sort of the like 20th century onwards, because we have so much more sort of evidence of that history. And then when it got to the most present day bits, it made me a bit depressed, but overall it was a funny, extremely humorous character. I absolutely love watching her shows and things, and yeah, I would recommend it. I did prefer the Encyclopedia Philomena, which I think that's what it's called, which I read 2024 I believe, or maybe 23. But yeah, it was still a fun read and I did enjoy it. Then 45 is Strange Houses by Yuketsu, translated from Japanese by Jim Ryan. Earlier in the year before this one came out, I read Strange Pictures. That one will be coming in the best video version. I loved that, and I instantly was like, I need to get this book, I need to get it. And I think I got it on like the day, 1 or 2 days after publication. I remember I went to Birmingham, I was like near the canals and stuff, and I got like heat stroke. I think it was so hot, I was just like kind of wrapped up, not wrapped up, but like I had like, I think my jacket on for most of the day because I do not like my, anyway, that's not necessary for this video. But anyway, I was really hot, I was really ill, had a massive headache, felt sick, but I didn't really want to like just go home and then have to come to the city again, like otherwise I need to go like shopping anyway. So I went to the city centre afterwards and I went to Waterstones and I picked this up new from the store because I was like, I need it. And yeah, that is like, why am I telling you the story? It's not relevant to the book, but yeah, I did really enjoy this book. I feel like when it's hard to not stop comparing it to the one previously, Strange Pictures, because I just love that so much. But this is still really entertaining about these different like floor plans, which are shown in the book, and then how they link to something sinister. And this one, it more like each story follows on from the next as the characters are going on, whilst in Strange Pictures it's more like separate stories but then they all come together. But yeah, interesting, fun. At number 44 we have I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. This is translated from French by Rod Schwartz, I think it is, isn't it? Yeah, Rod Schwartz. This is a Belgian book. I read it for my Bookish Euros section videos. There's very little views, but yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was very, very imaginative, very interesting. It's basically like a teenage girl sort of like who has lived all her life in this underground cage with 39 other women. Then sort of like a fluke incident allows them to escape, and then it follows them as they sort of transverse the landscape and how this, like, her life has never been touched by men, and sort of this creation of their own society. It leaves you with a lot more questions than answers, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, and I think that's sort of maybe what the author was trying to do. But I didn't fully love that aspect, but it is well written. It's very sort of like somewhat interesting because you sort of want to know what's going to happen, but then when you find out you don't, it's like, oh. And also it gets a little bit monotonous. I didn't love it as much as so many other people do. I sort of also think I maybe brought it up in my head that it was going to be incredible, which maybe it fell a little bit flatter than what I was expecting it to be, but still very, very decent. Would recommend it. And I also have Orlando by her, which I got recently, which I would like to read. And then 43 is Open Heaven by Sean Hewitt. This is the poet's first novel. Yeah, I enjoyed this book. Sort of like a bit of a coming of age, coming of yourself, coming of your sexuality, sort of a first love attraction sort of crush in sort of like a small town with the main character when he's like 16, I think, and then it starts with him later on, and then he thinks back to this time in, I think it's like the early 2000s, like 2002 or something, was it? Well written, sort of poetic, really nice nature scenes, and this sort of like writing style isn't sort of like linear, it sort of like goes up and down a bit, which maybe I sort of wanted a bit more of that like cohesion as the book went along. But yeah, overall I did enjoy it a lot. I know it is one I would recommend. Stop saying that. Then I have 3 that I don't currently have. Number 42 is Jimmy's Spectacular Christmas by Emma Thompson. Oh, these are now my 4-star reads. And yeah, it was fun, it was cute, it was nice, and it was narrated by the icon herself, Emma Thompson. So I thought I would give it a read and a listen in my 24-hour readathon sort of festive books, which I did earlier in December. And then also number 41 is The Comfort Food Cafe by Davy Johnson, which I read in that video as well. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It's sort of this nice community, sort of a woman goes to work at a cafe there with her teenage daughter, and sort of like finding herself again, finding community, and maybe a bit of a romance with a kind of hunky man. I was like, you go girl, like good for you. And then number 40 is Truth or Dare by MJ Arledge. I did read this physically, but I got it from sort of like book exchange thing that was at my university in the literature department. So after I read it, I gave it back, and also like I didn't like need to keep it because I already read the book. I sort of understood what happened. But this is part of the Helen Grace mystery, so it's number 10 in the series, and I feel like I probably should have read the other ones to sort of get a bit more backstory of the characters, but I didn't really feel it was that necessary, because each story I think is its own sort of plot and stuff. Although at the end of this I was left like, oh, but now I sort of kind of forgot maybe what happened. But anyway, it's sort of like a thrillery sort of crime mystery book in Southampton, and there's like these different like seemingly unconnected sort of murders or sort of crimes, and then them trying to work out what goes along. There is sort of like an internal sort of thing as well that I didn't particularly love. It's a little bit too long as well, but on the overall I was like hooked, and I was like, I need to keep on reading this, it's enjoyable. So yeah, now we have another flurry of the physical books that I have, so I'm gonna exchange my pile. Number 39 is Take My Voice by Sarang Chung, translated from Korean by Anton He. One of these chap books. It's like really short, but it is very impactful and sort of like holds its own. Yeah, I just enjoyed this book a lot. I don't really want to say too much because it's very short, but it's all about these little like monsters. It's a little bit sort of like dystopia. It talks about sort of like corruption and sort of like censorship as well in like Korea. And yeah, I've just really enjoyed sort of like found family sort of type books where sort of these different people sort of come together and sort of like deal with the circumstances and stuff. And yeah, it was really imaginative. I would definitely like to check out more of these sort of chapbook books, and also see if the author has done anything else, because I enjoyed it a lot. Then number 38 is A Luminous Republic by Andres Barbara. This is translated from Spanish by Lisa Dillman. This was the Spanish entry in my Bookish Euros, and yeah, I really enjoyed this. It was very like imaginative again. It's sort of this sort of small sort of like South American, well, yeah, South America. Am I speaking probably like the continent, not like Southern America, you're saying? Anyway, in this sort of like jungly area, and these like group of children, we start with them finding out that they were like all killed. I think it's like 30 of them, and then it's one of the main characters who like sort of works in sort of like some government department, telling the story again, thinking back, I think from like 20 years since the incidents. And about how these children sort of like came into the community from the forest. They didn't like know where they were coming from, and sort of like they created their own society, and sort of like the creation of societies and like how do they come about, and also the downfall of them. And yeah, I really enjoyed it, to be honest. I didn't love it, but I definitely thought it was a very good book. And I would like to check out the author again. I think he's written, I think it's like Such Small Hands or something, which is sort of like I think it's like a horror-y book. This is more it felt like Fable-esque in a way. Like it was really sort of like, yeah, an enjoyable reading experience. So yeah, one I would really recommend. I don't think I've like heard many people talk about it, to be honest. Then number 37 is Girl in Snow by Danica Kafka. This was one of my 25 or 2025 books. It's sort of about like a death of a teenage girl in this sort of small town, sort of a close-knit sort of thing. And then the different characters sort of like after the death, it doesn't really like gratuitous about the death at all, or really that isn't really the focus of it. It's more about these other characters and sort of who are we when we're being watched and who are we when we're not being watched, and sort of like, yeah, honestly I think I have sort of forgotten a little bit about this book. So maybe it shouldn't be this high up, but I remember I gave it a high rating of like 4 stars when I read it, so it definitely like impacted me then. But yeah, overall I really enjoyed it, from what I remember, which isn't much. But her later book, Notes on Execution, I would recommend over this like every single day. I thought the book was incredible. Yeah, still very decent. It's sort of like mystery, sort of crimey book. Then it is 36. I keep forgetting numbers. The Ballad of Reading Gaol, or Reading Jail, by Oscar Wilde. This is his like final piece of work. It's a poem. It has such a really nice sort of cadence and rhythm, and one you really have to sort of read aloud or have read to you to sort of fully get to grips with it. But it's about like his time in prison, when he was like sentenced for being homosexual basically, and a fellow inmate who murdered his wife as he gets ready for his execution, and sort of like life in the prison, sort of about like humanity, and sort of death penalty and stuff. And this also impacted quite a lot of sort of like prison reform after the fact. And yeah, I would really recommend it. I would definitely want to read more by Oscar Wilde as my time goes on. Yep. Then 35 is Leather Boys by Gillian Freeman. This one has only recently been republished by Dead Ink, which sort of like republished sort of like books that were meant to be classics if they had been more accepted by the literary world, especially this one that's part of the Outsider sort of series that focus on sort of marginalized groups. And yeah, this follows these two like young working class men in sort of 1960s London, and they sort of both find solace in the community in this biker gang, and then a friendship blooms, and then more as well afterwards. And yeah, it sort of showed people at the time that sort of gay men could really be anyone and there's nothing wrong with it, and it is a really nice portrayal of their friendship moving into a romance, and sort of put in this place of the 60s UK and London, sort of on the page, in between the Wolfenden Report and the Sexual Offences Act. And sort of changing people's societal views towards homosexuality, supposedly. There's a film as well afterwards. And yeah, I really like the sort of, it's hard when you first get to it because you're like, oh, it's a bit difficult, but when you actually read it, the sort of language is very sort of informal, and sort of the way they talk and say like "ome" instead of "home" and "is" instead of "his" and "e" instead of "he" and things like that, the sort of language that it's written in. But yeah, would recommend it. It was decent. I definitely want to check out more by the publisher and the author as well. Then is number 34, Passing by Nella Larson. This follows two women, Irene Redfield and Claire Kendry. Both were childhood friends. They're both African American, but they can portray as white and sort of access white spaces if they are thought of as passing. And whilst Irene stayed within the African American community, and sort of married a black doctor and had her own children in life, Claire married a white racist man, and then she sort of, within this society and sort of the people she's around in the community, she wants to get back to like sort of who she was before, and about like Irene sort of keeping this secret, and sort of the race problem and sort of segregation in 1920s Chicago and Harlem, New York at the time. And yeah, I thought it's quite slim, but it's quite impactful. And I think this one's really good for sort of like a book club, because there's like so much to talk about. Like when you finish this, you instantly just want to talk to someone and just be like, wait, what? Sorry, what happened there? So yeah, I thought it was a very, very good book. And then we have number 33 as Clear by Karis Davies. Very slim, very sort of slight, not too much happens, but is quite impactful. It is following a minister or something in 1843 in the Scottish Highlands. This man goes to this small island to tell the person living there either that he needs to be removed, because it's the time of the sort of Highlands and Scottish clearings of land by the sort of people that own the land, to like redevelop them and reuse them for different things than what they originally were for. But when he gets there, he almost dies, and he's saved by Ivor, and he loses like his papers and stuff. And it's sort of about the both of them trying to communicate with each other, but they both don't speak the same language, because Ivor, I believe, speaks like Gaelic, whereas the other main character, I think it's John, speaks English, and just sort of like how they go on about communicating, the difficulties they have, and yeah, sort of about like language, and yeah, just it's a nice book. It's a bit sad, but I did enjoy it a lot. And I would like to definitely check out the author again. For number 32, we have Reservoir Bitches by Dalia de la Carda, translated from Spanish by Heather Cleary and Julia Sanchez. I did read this physically, but I've since borrowed it to my sister because I thought she might enjoy it. So hopefully she does. And then I will be getting it back, maybe next year or something, because I definitely want to get it back because I really enjoyed this book. But this is sort of short stories, some are connected, in sort of like contemporary Mexico, and it follows, I think it's like 13 different women of their experiences sort of being a woman in contemporary Mexico with the femicide epidemic and the such huge disgusting numbers of sort of femicides and crime and violence against women in the country, and they all sort of lead up to the final story, which is sort of such a like, I can't remember the word now, but like engrossed in sort of coming together, call to arms to create change and have a talk about this problem that is happening within Mexico. Yeah, I thought I really enjoyed the way it was written. It's so sort of like informal, and like these characters are just talking to their friend or their acquaintance or family. It sort of definitely takes away this barrier of you're reading a book. It just feels like you're there with them because of the way it's written and this sort of informal language. And yeah, I just really enjoyed it. The only reason it is sort of a 4-star instead of could be higher is because it is a collection of short stories, and obviously some I enjoy more than others, so the average came to about like 3 point something, but I upped it to the 4-star because I just really enjoyed it, to be honest. So yeah, then number 31 is The Prince and the Dressmaker by Jen Wang. This is a graphic novel, I can't remember the word then, and it follows one of the main characters, Sebastian, I want to say, and he sort of dresses up as Lady Christilla at night and goes to sort of like the soirees and places and stuff like that in Paris, and then he hires a dressmaker, Francis, to make these dresses for him, and sort of like her own sort of story about sort of like wanting to be the next big thing, and so sort of like innovative in her designs and stuff, and everyone starts talking about them, but because she's working for the prince that doesn't want like his sort of gender exploration and gender identity and sort of his sort of expressions of sort of who he is, she can't be sort of like public being this dressmaker because they know that she works for him, and like anyway, that's the sort of plot. But yeah, I just really enjoyed it. I sort of really loved the sort of like friendship between them, and just the story and the artwork, and yeah, it was really good. definitely a good book. I'll definitely check out the author again. This was my first 4.25, and the rest of them are all 4.25 now. The next one is Love in the Big City by Sang-Yong Park, translated from Korean by Anton He. This was one of my 2025 books. This is following the main character of Young in sort of like contemporary Korea and Seoul, living as a gay man, and sort of his relationship with like his friends, and also his mother as well, and her sort of like reluctances to accept him fully, and other sort of issues and facets of his life. I did keep saying that sort of the back of this tells me that it's mostly focusing on the relationship with his friend Jae-hee at like university, but that is sort of more like the first chapter, and then she comes back a little bit later on, but it's definitely a lot more just all from him. So I was a little bit misled with that, but I don't necessarily say it's a bad thing. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed this book. It was well written. I sort of maybe also sort of forgotten a little bit about it, but I would definitely like to read it again and read the author again. And yeah, it was well translated, so yeah, good book. Then is number 29, Like People in History by Felice Picano. This is massive. Also, like the writing is very small, and yeah, this one just it did drag along. This one I started in June 2024, I think it was, and then I finished it in like February or March 2025. I wasn't reading it throughout the whole time. I read like chunks and stuff. Also, I did want to try and finish it before the end of 2024. I read quite a lot of it, but then I just sort of put it on hold and then started again. But yeah, this is sort of like a queer epic. It's following these two cousins, Alistair Dodge and Roger Sansak. It's all from sort of Roger's perspective, basically, and sort of, let me just show you the contents, is easier, or like the different books there are. So these are different time frames that it follows, and just about sort of like queer life and being there within like the queer scenes and the changing sort of demographics and issues and stuff in the USA. And it does also come back to like the 90s, which are in sort of like each chapter as well, or like book. It's sort of it's in that time frame, and then the main character like thinks back to the previous sort of like decades or something, like over like 50 years, and then it talks about what happened then and then in those times, basically. It's hard to fully comprehend. I did enjoy it a lot. I think it's an epic. I think it's a bit too long. It is a bit too long, and maybe a little bit like detailed and stuff. I'm like, oh, I don't know, but it does its job, and it's set out to, you know, write this sort of hugely ambitious and engrossing saga, and it, yeah, also as well, it is gloriously camp, and does act as a critique of America in general, and yeah, like I'll just show you the back, because then you can see sort of what it all says, because it is what I would recommend. I would definitely check out the author again, but it is long and dense, so yeah. Then is 428 is The Midnight Club by Christopher Pike. Yeah, again, I really enjoyed this book. I wasn't fully expecting to. This is a YA book, following these sort of adolescents that are in like a hospice, because they all have like different terminal illnesses and they are going to die, and quite a lot of it is sort of like quite sad about them, you know, approaching the end of their life when they're still so young, and how like heartbreaking that is. But they all, not all of them, but like most of them meet at midnight to tell these sort of stories. It's marketed as that they tell these lot of horrifying sort of spooky horror stories. It isn't fully the case. Some do fit that. Some are a little bit thrillery, some are dramas, some are a little bit literary in a sense. But they're all interesting, and I did really enjoy these stories and sort of the relationships between the characters and them sort of, you know, going about their lives and stuff. And yeah, one I would definitely recommend. I really do actually want to check out the author again. I know he's like written so many books and has been likened to sort of like R.L. Stein, but more for sort of like the YA than the middle grade. But yeah, very decent read. 27 is A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. This is the first in a duology of these monk and robot books. Very short, and this is like, it's sci-fi, isn't it? Yeah, it's sort of like sci-fi, sort of this other world, following this like non-binary teen monk. So cute, so funny as well, and just like a bit wacky. I love them. And it's them on a quest to, I think it's like, hear crickets in the wild, which they've never done before. So they go to like find where crickets could be in the where they live now. And they, as they're on the journey, they come across this this robot. And the robot is there to go to talk to humans again and say like, are you okay since we left? Do you need anything else from us, or like, how are you getting on? Because previously in the sort of lore, the robots and the monks or the people were sort of like living together and sort of like using the robots for different services and stuff. But then there was like, no, we are conscious, we are going to leave you now, and they promise to come back again later and say like, are you okay? And yeah, just like about the two of theirs relationships, and sort of talking about humanity and sort of the robot world as well, and sort of like parts of their history and their identities, and yeah, sort of a bit like found family again. Very cozy, enjoyable read, a bit humorous as well. And yeah, I definitely want to check out the second one soon. I do have it, and see how the duology finishes basically. And then number 26, just missing out on being one of my best 25, is Martyr by Kaveh Akbar. This book was like really good, to be honest. I just didn't fully love it. It's following Cyrus, who had like battled addiction but he's like sober now, and he's sort of like a little bit lost, I guess. And he wants to write a book on martyrdom and martyrs, and try and like find out about them. And then he goes to New York to speak with a woman that's dying of cancer that is like gonna like just talk to people, and also about his relationship, like on-off relationship, with his friend, can't remember his name though, and also about his own sort of like personal family history, where like his mother was in an Iranian plane that was shot down by the USA, and also his uncle sort of like rode on horseback in sort of like war zones, to like be this sort of like figure of, don't like kill yourself if like the soldiers are dying, because you need to sort of earn your place to go into heaven. And yeah, and also about like his own father's experiences of being an Iranian immigrant in the USA, and sort of like his own like experiences with that. And yeah, a lot to it. I just kind of wish there was maybe a bit more of like some conversations after we learn a certain thing towards the end. And it's a little bit repetitive in parts, but yeah, overall I did really enjoy this book. I definitely want to give it a reread soon and like, annotate it. I think would be good. But yeah, don't really have any much else to say. They were my most honourable mentionable books of the year of 2025. Hope you enjoyed this. Stay tuned for my best ones coming soon, and I shall see you then. Have the most night, baby, out in the world.